We wrap up our generosity series with part 2 of paradigm shifts in whole life generosity. As we wrap up this series on generosity, we are going to look at 5 more mindset shifts that we must adopt if we are going to make whole life generosity a reality for us as Christian leaders. Having already examined 5 in the previous module that we had, the first in today's module is we must shift from a mindset of scarcity. I cannot emphasize this enough. I think a majority of leaders in Africa suffer from this mindset of scarcity. And I believe that is as a result of the poverty in which a lot of us grew up. If you ever grew up in a household where you never had everything that you needed, then your mindset is more going to lean towards the scarcity than towards abundance. But if we are going to make whole life generosity a reality, then we must stop thinking that we need to protect what we have and be measured and considerate and calculating in the way that we respond to the needs of others, to embrace a mindset of abundance that pretty much says that God will always provide abundantly for me, because that's what Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 10 and verse 11. From verse 8, as a matter of fact, he said God is able to make all grace abound. So we must embrace a mindset of abundance so that we can be extravagant in the way that we give of ourselves, our time, our resources, etc. The second mindset that we must embrace is going from thinking that God is merely the owner of the things that we have and we are therefore stewards, to believing that God is a father. And when you deal with a father, then you can rest in the fact that he will provide the seed that you need to sow. When you work with a manager, there is need for caution. And that's what seeing God merely as an owner is going to trigger in us. But when we see him as a father, I don't know any father who can be satisfied not providing for their children what they need. That shift in the way we see God is going to help us to make whole life generosity a reality as we continue on this path as Christian leaders. Next, we must be able to shift from the belief that we should only give a percentage, right? The Bible teaches tithing in many places. And I hope I don't get into any trouble with pastors whose churches run on tithes. The truth is that the tithe is intended to be the minimum of what we give and not the maximum. And so if you have made your tithe the measure, the upper limit of what you should give, then you're selling short and cheating yourself out of the blessings that come from a generous lifestyle. We are supposed to give abundantly, generously, extravagantly. And so we must shift from thinking, I can only give a percentage of what I own, to I need to give God everything. Because we already saw that God is the owner of everything. Our time, 24/7, we must live to find ways that we can bless other people around us through the lifestyle of generosity. Next, we must shift our thinking from seeing giving as a program, right? At the start of every year, different churches have programs that they sell. They encourage Christians, you have to give for this. There is this project, there is this thing. There is Thanksgiving season, right? A lot of people wait for Thanksgiving to be able to give. We must shift our mindset from seeing giving as a program to seeing generosity as a way of life. Giving is so much the normal culture of the church that God envisions for this generation. We must be able to give generously and not only wait for when the church organizes giving campaigns or project fundraising to be able to respond in our giving. Finally, we must shift our thinking from thinking that generosity is only reserved to certain people that have the gift of giving. Of course, scripture teaches giving as one of the gifts. When Paul talks about the gifts of the Spirit, he mentions giving. And true, there are certain people for whom abundant grace abounds to give and to be generous. But we must believe that we all, like we saw in previous modules, are called to be generous. There are certainly some people who can give and have the gift of giving, but every single one of us, children of God, is called to be generous. And we must find joy in embracing this consistent, continual lifestyle so that each and every day of our lives, 24/7, God is being revealed. His glory is being displayed in the way we give of our financial resources, in the way we give of our material resources, in the way we give of our time, and in the way you give of your presence. I want to end on this note. In a world of devices where computers and tablets and phones are replacing physical interaction, do you know that you could be generous with your presence? When you sit in a room with people, are you really there with them? Or are you seated in that room but distracted by the device in your pocket, the device in your hand, the wristwatch that you are wearing? The world is going all out to develop gadgets that will keep us distracted and deviate our attention from the people that God calls us to serve. But for those of us seeking to embrace a generous lifestyle, we must apply that even to the way we steward the presence that God has blessed us to carry, so that we bring life into a room by being physically present with the people that we spend this time with. I do hope that in all that we have done in these modules on generosity, there is at least one thing that you can begin applying in your life, not tomorrow, not next week, but today. Because if you're going to succeed, you must start now. God bless you.